put the fun in dysfunctional. The chaos is in my name. I'm a walking little fireworks show with absolutely zero shame. They say you need some fixing. I say maybe they're right too. But if crazy had a mascot, I'd be wearing that tattoo. I came without instructions, just a warning on the side. May appear completely normal, don't believe the disguise. I treat good decisions like they're somebody else's job, then act completely shocked when everything falls off. My life runs on plot twists, chaos signs the checks. I trip over nothing, then somehow stick the landing next. I'm not coming unraveled, I'm just built a different way. If disaster had a dress code, I'd be best dressed every day. I put the fun in dysfunctional. The chaos is in my name. I'm a walking little fireworks show with absolutely zero shame. They say you need some fixing. I say maybe they're right too. But if crazy had a mascot, I'd be wearing that tattoo. My red flags are famous, they deserve their own parade. If chaos had a spokesperson, I'd already be getting paid. I'm a bad idea smiling, dressed up looking legit. The kind your mama warned you about and she probably love a bit. Raise your glass to the weird ones, the misfits and the fools, the ones who color outside the lines and still rewrite the rules. We're not here to be perfect, we're here to have a ball. Because the best kind of crazy is the kind that owns it all. I put the fun in dysfunctional. The chaos is in my name. I'm a walking little fireworks show with absolutely zero shame. They say you need some fixing. I say maybe they're right too. But if crazy had a mascot, I'd be wearing that tattoo. Don't call it intervention, don't call anyone at all. Just turn up the music louder and watch me break the wall. Ring da 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 da. Still I keep pushing through. Rain slide down the windshield slow. 3 a.m. on a Gulf Coast road. Coffee cold in the console light. Ain't been home in a couple nights. Okay, file on the passenger seat. Same dead names and missing weeks. Every lead just die again. Soon as I get close to it, man at the station looked half scared. Started talking, then disappeared. The whole town acting deaf and blind, like they know but staying quiet. Black water static in the night, something underneath ain't right. Every trail go colder.
People staying quiet. Staying quiet. It's though picking up the energy of those that are around us, that are aware of the actions of others, the way that they, hey, thank you, the way that they pull on our energy, right? You know, but it's the things that other people are aware of that they don't see any harm with it. Oh, it was just that. It was just this little minor thing. You know, but the funny part is, it's like, that's what the energy is. It's the way that other people will be used as pawns, knowingly or unknowingly. You know, knowingly it'll be because it's only little minor things. Oh, I only did this. I only did that. I only. It's, hindsight is 20/20. you know, the weight that what I'm getting is like the weight we put on our decisions, right? Our choices, our actions, the way that we justify it. But that's what it is, right? It's justifying it. It's taking what information, what knowledge is available to us, digesting it, putting it on the scales, weighing the odds, and then coming to our conclusion. You know, but what's interesting too is conclusions. Well, what I'm getting is that vendor on the you know, in the market with like it's either a bad scale, right? So they're shorting you, kind of like Walmart, right? Or it's like that, the one that it's like as soon as you look away, they're like taking some out of the bag, or every time they pour some in and then you turn away and then they're like taking some out. What is that? It's just, well, but it's the deceivers, right? It's the deceivers. You know, deceivers can't do all the work themselves. The deceivers have to rely on other people to do their bidding for them. Because if it was just one person coming at us from all these different angles, all these different ways, right? If it was just one person trying to siphon us, although a lot of times it's the same person orchestrating it, right? But the plan only works, you know, when everyone goes along with it. When those that think that they're just doing the minor little things, you know, start to realize how these minor little things are, yeah, they are minor, but it's still fuckery. But it's the way that we rebalance our own scales in the sense of calling judgment upon ourselves. You know, once we get more information, once we do, that's what it is. It's research. Once we do the research that we should have fucking done to begin with. Whether it be what we're doing, who we're doing it to, the why we're doing it. You know, but the why is always the fuck up. Because the why is always a fuck up. Because you shouldn't be fucking off doing the whys anyways. You know, but it's also too is, why was this done to me? You know, it's the shifting of, it's the Christ consciousness. It's the shifting. It's the elevated mindset of, what is this trying to teach me? What am I supposed to be learning in this situation? Because I'll be damned if I just went through all that for fucking nothing. You know, coming out of it with nothing. You know, nothing but a big old fuck you. Putting some respect on our name. You know, the funny thing about that too, though, is, you know, we don't force it. First off, you can't force anyone to do anything. Especially trying to force someone to put respect on your name. It's, oh, man, their throat chakra is gonna choke up every time every time they try to get it to come out. It's not gonna happen until they're forced to, and not by our hand. By the hand that truly matters, the Most High, our spirit team, our ancestors. Never by our hand. You know, because when we try to do it by our hand, what are we doing? Or we're taking matters. One, we're assuming that our judgment is correct, not always the proper choice. You know, but that's interesting too. Choices, the choices we make. You know, it's the accumulation of all the choices. It's the accumulation of all the thoughts that led to the action. You know, but it all starts with cleaning up your mind. You know, but part of cleaning up your mind is taking all the scales. You know, what's interesting too is, right? Anyone old school, right? That, you know, used to sell, you know, smoke back in the day. You know, the little fucking scales, right? How would you calibrate those ones? Well, the same way with the nickel, right? But you got to read it. And things weren't digitalized, right? But then you get ones that they were cheap, you know, and normally we'd have a bunch of them, or we'd lend them out, no problem. Here, just take one. I got a bunch of them, right? It ain't nothing. What, like a couple bucks, right? But it's when you realize that it's off balance. When you realize it's not calibrated, that's what's interesting too. The calibrations, but the calibrations are frequency, right? It's the fine tuning. It's the ways that we catch ourselves in thoughts. It's the ways that we catch ourselves in actions. It's the ways that we learn to catch ourselves. It starts off with catching ourselves in the action, like, oh fuck, I'm doing it again, right? But then once you elevate, the next level of that is once the thoughts come into your mind, you do as Yeshua said, and you take command of the thoughts that aren't yours, because now we realize the thought is not mine, you know, but it all starts with the conscious awareness, and we have to bring awareness to our actions before we can bring awareness to our thoughts. Interesting too. Awareness to our actions, awareness to our thoughts. It's when people start questioning, it's back to the energy of people doing other people's biddings. It's back to the energy of when people start questioning, well, okay, I know I lied to myself and told myself it was only a small, minor little thing. Like, it was nothing, right? But then it's that nothing sometimes, interesting too. It's making a mountain out of a molehill, right? But a lot of times it is the mountain. You know what I mean? It is a mountain. We're just so narrow vision. We're only able to see the tiny little part of it. But a lot of times it takes what? It takes stepping back to see the full picture. You can't see the full picture when you're zoomed all the way in. And zooming all the way in is what? Getting fully engaged in the 3D. It's being surrounded with people just of the 3D. It's being consumed by that. We have to take a step back from that to see the bigger picture. Well, that's the problem is, well, one, people, you have to, what's interesting too? I thought I had earlier. It was a correlation between what if the 12 disciples that gave up everything and just followed? What if there's a correlation between that? Because as Yeshua says, have the heart of like a children, right? So what if there's a correlation, a connection between, I was being brought to Peter Pan, Neverland, right? But it's heaven and hell, it's mindsets. Another thought that I have with that too is, my energy is, it's a portal. Like getting in my energy are portals. But it's, I'm going to show the portal of optimism is always available. I'm going to show that the portal to happiness is always available. But it's choices, it's thoughts, it's actions, it's decisions. It doesn't just open up. You gotta create the portal, and we create the portal with our thoughts. Because, like I say all the time, with every thought has potential to shift us into a different timeline. With every thought. And then you take all the accumulated thoughts, you take all the accumulated actions, you take the accumulation of everything, and what portal are we hopping into? But once we're able to step back and see our actions properly, and once we're able to see everything properly, we're able to see what portals we're about to get into. And it's like, oh, hold up, pump the brakes, I probably shouldn't be hopping into that one. Even though I really thought I was supposed to, and this and that, or there's so many different reasons. But it all comes back to taking the step back. But the step back is what? It's just, but you can take the step back while you're right there. Taking the step back is hearing the thoughts, the words of other people. It's hearing them and knowing that, no, that doesn't align. That's not my thought. That's not whatever it is, and throwing it the fuck out. And that's just, it's dismissing people's, well, that's interesting too. A lot of times people are so quick to dismiss other people's words just because what? Because it challenges our beliefs. It challenges something inside of us. It challenges us. It challenges us to question ourselves. It challenges us to question why we do things. And it just questions. Questions are dangerous. Questions are really dangerous. The truth is dangerous. I'd like to take the time to, we lost a truth seeker recently. Anyone that knows Joe, I forget his last name, starts with the F. But, another truth seeker. And he was gaining too much momentum, obviously. Not to speculate on what happened, but anyone that's followed him and knows what he does and what he exposes and what was he doing? He was collecting old books, old Bibles, ones that didn't get completely whitewashed, ones that didn't have all the censorship in them. And what was he doing? He was documenting them and re-uploading them. That's dangerous. It's dangerous. Seeking the truth is dangerous, but exposing the truth, it's like putting a target on your back, And the fucked up part about it is, those without the eyes to see are going to be quick to shut you off and not listen to the words you have to say because you're crazy. What the fuck do you know? And the ones that do know, you get mislabeled, which society does very easily. But it's interesting too, or else what? You get mislabeled, but mislabeled by who? We get people get thrown into psych wards and mislabeled by what? By whose standards? By their pseudoscience? Pseudo-fucking science? These doctors and their pseudoscience? They're the ones that are qualified and certified. By who? And it's funny too, not by the Most High. not by the Most High. You know, it's interesting too, people that think that they have enlightenment. People think that they have wisdom and they have knowledge. Because what? You learn from man? The only man or woman we should ever be learning from is ourself, first off. I know I said first off. I don't know why I said first off, because I didn't have another point to follow that up with. I didn't even, that was just the intro. I haven't even done anything yet. I haven't even really shuffled. That was just the intro? Jeez. Alright. How you guys doing? You guys doing good? I hope so. I'm gonna do some more shuffling, then we'll tap in. Get a prayer in.
Somebody burying it. Long roads cutting through the rain. Whole thing bigger than my name. Every answer split in two. Still I keep pushing through. Whiskey and sleepless eyes, TV glowing through the dark. Same fake smile, same old talk. A refinery by the shore, rusty towers and broken doors. Found that symbol one more time, scratched into the metal signs. Papers missing from the file. Captain say stand down a while. Funny how they shut things down soon as you get close enough. Black water static in the night. Something underneath ain't right. Every trail go cold again. Like somebody burying it. Long roads cutting through the rain. Whole thing bigger than my name. Every answer split in two. Still I keep pushing through. Pushing through.
To the ancestors, known and unknown, Ashe. To the gods, known and unknown, Ashe. All the praise, all the glory be to the Most High. What's going on, guys? It's your favorite cosmic warrior and 5D DJ, here to bring the good vibes and some knowledge. But let's get a prayer in. Let's tap into the energy. Spirit, thank you for coming through. Thank you for guiding and protecting this message. Thank you for removing any negative energy from the area. Thank you for allowing this to get to any and everyone it's intended to. And so it is.
Saw your shadow in the grocery line. Didn't turn, but I knew the sign. Whole room tilt when you walk by. Like gravity forgot the sky. I play it cool, pretend I'm fine. But you redraw my state of mind. Every song, every passing street somehow loops you back to me. Smoke, roll slow in smoky haze. Smoke, roll slow in midnight haze. Thoughts drift out for days and days. You live rent-free in my mind. Rent-free in my mind. Rent-free in my mind.
But it's they wanted you on a road going to nowhere. It's no changes, no transformation. But what's that? It's repetitive loops, it's repetitive cycles. But interesting too. They thought that they could. You know, horses are led, right? They're led because they're blinded, right? It's like, you know, it's the manipulation. It's the lies. It's the way that they want to guide you down certain roads, right? So it's like, you know, it's removing your visibility. It's they can't even do that. It's an illusion casted over you, right? It's blocking sight. But it's back to that energy of taking a step back. But it's, you know, how do horses take a step back? You know, with that, how do you take a step back from that? How do you take a step back from that? But it's the steps back. Okay, so we all have choices, right? You know, things happen to us. You know, that's part of the plan. Not always, always the Most High's plan. Not always our plan, but always the Most High's plan. It's interesting too, as people wonder why God will allow things to happen. One way of looking at it is, why would I allow it to happen? When you have the realization that, you and God are one, right? Why would we allow this to happen? Sometimes we do. By how the way that we allow others to treat us leads us down that road. Sometimes it's, how is that? I'm getting manipulation, but it's with words. How do we allow other people's words put blinders over us? Other people's projections, their lack of, their inability to do things, the projections. It's the things that we accept. We're only able to manipulate when we accept less. We're only able to be manipulated. We're only able to be manipulated when we accept less. But it's the manipulation of it's the knowledge that you've gained of the manipulation. It's transmuted. It's transmuting. It's transmuting energy. But interesting too. Energy has to be transferred. It doesn't just go away, right? And so, what does that look like? Well, when we pass over in this vessel, we go back to our essence, right? But it's energy, right? It's the negative energy that's sent to us. We transmute it, and we don't send it back. If anything, we send it to the universe, wrapped in love and light, and to be used for the greatest good of all. If it comes to us, great, awesome. I appreciate it. If that's where the universe sees it, fit. That's what I do. Those are the choices that I make. I don't normally do that, but if I do choose to send it back, I send it back to the universe. I normally don't. I don't occupy space in my time worried about those sort of things. I don't worry about who's talking about me. I don't worry about what's being done to me. I focus on what's ahead of me. Sometimes it's a problem. If it isn't a problem, I'm not going to manifest more problems and sit there and dwell in what might happen. And if I am going to think about what might happen, I'm going to spin it around and think about how this will work out for my greatest good. A lot of times that's sitting back and it's like, what the fuck's the lesson in this? Sometimes it's obvious. Well, sometimes it's not so obvious. Sometimes the pattern recognition is obvious. It stands out to us. I recognize this. Been here, done this way too many times not to have recognized it. But why do I keep finding myself in this situation? That's interesting too. Manipulating is mental manipulation, but it's how it is. They didn't want you to be able to see how you found yourself in the situations you found yourself. Because if you're able to realize how I ended up here, then you can backtrack and find your way the fuck out of it. But if you're thinking that it's over here, but it's over there, that's interesting too. It's like a treasure hunt, but it's flipped all the maps around. So even if you find a good, and they altered the map, so even if you find an accurate map, you're still going to be using an inaccurate, compass. And so you're still not going to find what you're looking for anyways. But that's the biggest illusion of anything, is the compass is internally. It can't go anywhere. It can get thrown way the fuck out of calibration. Our frequency. Everything. The people around us, everything we consume, everything. Our frequency is altered all the time. And we rarely ever take the time to readjust it, because we've lost sight of what the frequency even is. That's interesting too. The frequency is authenticity. That's the highest frequency. And once you find that, it's easy to point out what is not authentic. It stands right out like sore eye. Sore eye. Someone has, their eyes are sore. Why? Because your authenticity is standing out. But the funny part about that too is, when you're being authentic to yourself, you're going to get eyes on you because you are authentic. But it's the pick-me's that are going to be jealous because they're the ones that are doing this or that but that's the whole point, is they're doing it for the wrong reasons. And that's why they're not going to get what they're seeking, because they're seeking the wrong fucking things. Seek thee first. It's seek thee first, the kingdom within you, not the kingdom within someone else. That wasn't Yeshua's teachings. Yeshua said, seek thee first the kingdom inside of you. But how do you find that too? Also, as Yeshua said, you got to silence the mind. You got to meditate. You got to cast the net to the right-hand side. But people think it's a physical fucking net. But what do? The nets that are built are what? They're of lead. You're not going to throw that very far.
That's the work happening inside. One steady breath, one open heart. We heal the world by how we start.
What I was seeing, what's standing out to me is the ool. It's a duel. But the spiritual journey, it's a never-ending journey, and it never ends. But it's the duel. It's a duel that never ends either. Because who are we dueling with ourselves? Well, I just gave the answer away. We're dueling with ourselves. It's previous versions of ourselves. It's lots of things. It's old addictions. Habit, it's everything. It's any version of ourselves that no longer aligns with the new us. A lot of people, they kind of turn around a lot in the journey because, many reasons. They want to take other people on the journey with you, but it's, the journey is individual. And journeys can, paths can align, paths can separate and come back. But the path is the path, and the path is our own. Imagine trying to following someone around, and, you could have a lot of the, how do I even say that? It's like having a ninja follow a medieval, knight around into battle. It's completely different ways of fighting, completely different battles, completely different. Not even just cultures. It's different eras, different times. Well, it's interesting too. It's people that are still stuck in, some people still stuck in it. But it's interesting too is the way that people perceive things. People will look at some people that still have a childlike heart, like Yeshua instructed us to do, and they'll judge them for still being able to dream, for still believing in miracles. But miracles are what? It's it's magic, magis, magicians. That's interesting too, is the magicians. The really good magicians are what? But interesting too, it's the angels, the magicians, angels. It's the people that we cross all the time, that are sent, that come across our path into our journey for a reason, to help us shift our perspective, our narrative, or whatever it is that we need to shift. And how does that normally look? It looks through being triggered. It looks through being challenged, questioned, all those things that, that makes us want to pick up our sword instead of picking up our pen. Well, it's interesting too, but the power in the tongue, the words that we speak. Well, I'm getting the energy of the words that we speak to those that are trying to help us. But then it's the realization, but it doesn't happen until, the realization doesn't happen until we're ready to integrate it. Until we're finally ready to see it. But a lot of times, what does it take for us to finally be ready to see it? us getting beaten all the way the fuck up, but we can't move around, our eyelids get fucking taped open, We have no choice, right? We have no choice but to turn to God. We have no choice but to go internally. We have no choice. We always have choices, but it only takes sometimes it takes, but it's, what I'm getting is all the way down to our last choice, which should have been our first choice, which is never our last choice anyways. There's no last choices. What's interesting too is people trying to rush around and complete things this lifetime. And when you try to rush too much, you kind of miss the purpose of it, which is what? It's to enjoy it. Well, but a lot of times we find ourselves in not so enjoyable places, right? Well, but it's when we're in those times, when we're in those states where we find escape. And how do we do that? Any way that we can. Taking control of any and everything that we can. Sometimes, I'm getting hermit mode. What's interesting too is, I was always like, I hermited a lot, but even when I was out, even when I go out, I still kind of hermit in the sense of, I don't, just because I'm out doesn't mean I'm going to engage with everyone. I gotta feel the energy. I gotta, which I normally know right away, but I don't always. Well, that's interesting too. Is I'm still learning, right? Well, it's more of a making things make sense. I've always moved in certain ways, which obviously they worked, But it's the more of just realizing why they worked, how they worked, Because some things I just do naturally, and I've never had to describe it, And so it's like, how do we even, one, it's the realization of what I've been doing, but then two, it's like, how do I even break that down into words? But that's breaking down into words. Yeah, how do you break down into words our journey? Because to break down into words our journey is, well, we gotta, break down into words all of our past trauma, all of our past trials and tribulations. We gotta remember it all too. And it's like, I don't know about you guys, but I try not to occupy too much of my mind with, unhappy thoughts or memories. I try to save that space for new happy thoughts, for new happy memories. But what are we allowed to operate? I was going to say occupy. But that's what it is, though. What we allow to occupy our mind is what we allow to... It's co-piloting. It's what we allow in there is slowly... That's also... It's what we allow in. It's like what we allow in through our ears or mouth, or whatever it is we allow in. We knowingly or unknowingly allow viruses in to corrupt our mind. Because that's what it is. It's corruptions of the mind. But it's the elephant standing out to me. It's tuning back in with nature. By tuning back into nature, and then the tusks are standing out to me, and they're not broken, they're long, they're strong, but what happens interesting too, finding our strength in nature, but what does that look like? That's like healing, right? And what do I say all the time? I talk about how we give thanks to the Most High. We give thanks because we speak it into existence. We give thanks to the Most High for removing anything in us that is not of the Most High and replacing it with that which is. And, when you say that, first off, be careful doing that. But it's also, what are we asking? This trauma that I've been carrying around, these burdens, this pain, remove it from me. Take it from me. The stuff that I suppressed, the memories we suppressed because they weren't happy. And so, it's everything. The things that we've forgotten about. The things that, it's just everything. But it's like liquid gold, It's the healing that happens internally, the healing that the Most High, only the Most High can do. It's the restoration, but not just the restoration. It's the way we come back stronger than before. But it's back to that cliche: what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. But how do we get stronger, though? It's the full realization of everything. It's the proper realization of the what happened and the why. And a lot of times the what and the whys are, what lesson is this trying to teach me? What do I keep ignoring? What do I keep... It's what illusion... I'm getting what illusions do I keep putting over myself? That's what a lot of it is too, though. It's either the illusions that we cast over ourselves, or the illusions that we allow others to cast onto us or project onto us. But an illusion is an illusion nonetheless. It doesn't exist, only in our mind.
Motherfucker, stand on it. You was brave a second ago. Now suddenly you're smiling, shoulder touching, calling me brother, trying to smooth over your own mouth. Makes me wanna hit you worse, honestly, cause now I know you're weak for real. See, real men need the minute or they didn't, but all that halfway back pedal shit, that's panic. And panic's real strong, it's hit on certain people. That's why habit roll different, less performance, more weight than me. I ain't trying to be feared, I'm just not built to tolerate disrespect comfortably. That's a complete...
Yeah, it's the new me. It's... What I'm getting is the energy of people that were used to being able to betray you. However it was, taking advantage of you, betraying you. It's whatever action we allowed, though. Because that's what it comes down to, though. A lot of times, we know people betray us. We either see it, hear it, we know. But we allow it to happen again and again. Why? A lot of people are afraid of confrontation. And it's interesting too, but it's... What I'm getting is the energy of people that are... Oh, that's what it is. It's people that are... It's your light reflects back. It's like a mirror, right? It's like your light reflects back the things in them that, well, it's their jealousy, what they're jealous of. But it's the jealousy is it's a reflection of the lack of things that they've done to themselves. Done to themselves? It's the ways that they betrayed themselves. It's a projecting. But it's they know. Sometimes people know. Like, they know why you're triggering them. They know that you're not even doing anything. Sometimes just our existence can trigger people. And why is that? It's because, all they do is betray themselves. And so especially when someone doesn't betray themselves, and not only just don't betray themselves, start standing up for themselves too, because that's what the song was. It was talking about, and it's finding your voice. But it's, when you find your voice, what happens? You know what I'm getting to, though? You know what I'm seeing? It's finding your voice, but it's like a power-up with a sword. It's like you finally pull your sword out and you power it up. But what does that power-up do? It sends that ripple that's felt. That ripple that's felt. No longer will I accept it even around me. You know what I mean? It's, whether it be the ways that people talk, but it's what we accept. When people talk bad to our face, it's because we accept it. When people talk bad behind our back, so I want to say sometimes it's because we accept it too. But who are they talking to? To other people that are close to us, right? But, if we don't hang out with our enemies, why would we hang out with people that hang out with our enemies? Not to say that, it's good to keep them close, right, and know what they're doing, right? But that's interesting too, know what they're doing. I'm picking up the energy, people that play both sides. But then they want to plead the fifth and act like they didn't say anything. It's like, okay, you might not have said something, but it's the way that people will sit around as you're being bad talked, and they'll just co-sign it by either their silence or their kind of nonverbal agreeing, right? That's interesting too. The way that people betray themselves by staying silent, by not calling other people out on their bullshit. It's like calling people out on the. Oh, that's what it is too. It's the what I'm seeing there is the energy of people saying that you haven't changed. You're the same old you. This and that, whatever the fuck they're saying. But it's interesting too about that is a lot of times that's because that's all they want to believe. They want to believe with everything in their existence that you haven't changed. Because why? Because they're refusing to even hold the space for the possibility that maybe you have changed. It's interesting too. It's the way that some people could think that it's such a miracle. But why is that? Well, they can't see all the steps that we take. They can't see. They have no fucking idea. Outside perspectives. But it's judgment, casting judgment. Okay, maybe they knew a past version of us, but guess what? Keyword there, past. Am I accountable to that? Yes. Am I held down by that? No. Held down by that. I'm getting at casting a net, but it's like you trying to reemerge out of the water, and it's like they want to cast a net over you, which is what? Gonna hold you down and bring you back down. But what would that be? Their words. But it's people's words can only affect us if we allow it to. Oh, you thought that your words were going to hurt me? You thought that your words were going to stop me? Oh, that's cute. That's really cute.
Different thing. You ever notice the loudest dudes always the safest dudes in the room? Yeah. Think about that.
Thinking about it. Oh, that's what that is. Okay, so it's casting a net. It's a net, but it's in the sense of what Yeshua said when we cast a net, right? But it's when we meditate. But it's also the tithing of the 10%. It's quieting the mind, quieting our thoughts, all the thoughts that aren't ours, and giving it up. Here, I don't want these thoughts; they're not mine. But then it's tapping into higher knowledge, higher sources. But how do you tap into it? Well, alignment. It's the energy of people keeping tabs on you and what you're doing. It's the people that are so focused into what we're doing instead of what they're doing. It's the redneck, but what I'm getting is like the country part, right? What happens out in the woods? Oh, that's okay. The energy, connecting back with nature. Connecting back with nature. But the secret accounts, right? What are the secret accounts? Well, it could be many things. It could be, our spiritual DNA, right? Tapping into that, right? It could be consciousness. There's so many different accounts we have access to. We've just lost sight of that. We've forgotten that.
Touch makes that kitty clench, shake again. Cold ice melting in the fire across your skin. You arch and melt when I call you my dirty little sin. We disappear into the night, smoking rain, candle flames low. Ice kisses hard against your clit, red wax running down slow. You look lightweight, corrupted, ruined, blindfolded in cold chains. Subdued, I yank the links and pull you into me. One savage thrust, and you're completely through. You got me drowning in this filthy tension, baby. Sweat pooling on your chest.
What is that? It's like they thought that Well, I'm getting like premature. Mm. You know what I'm picking up on? It's the energy of like, a psych ward. And so, spiritual psychosis. That's why it's really important to pay attention to what you allow into your mind. The readers, it's your energy. Where you spend time. Question me. The first reader you shouldn't trust is someone that's saying trust me. You don't trust them because their words say it. We trust people because we know it to be proper. Either for the time being. That's interesting too. The time being. Sometimes we fall out of alignment with people. Sometimes we come into when I first, I never watched tarot and I didn't follow it, none of that, right? But the first kind of read, there was, not to say that there weren't truths in it, but the type of readers that I found at first were, I don't know what their motives were. Some people play onto the 3D more because it plays into people's emotions, so then they can milk them out and siphon money off them and energy, and there's plenty of false people. There's plenty of bad people everywhere we go for everything. It doesn't matter what the profession is. There's going to be the deceivers. But it's word of mouth. What are the deceivers? Word of mouth, right? Word of mouth is better than any advertisement you could ever fucking pay for. Ever. You get these, who has to pay a lot for advertisement? People that have a shitty fucking product or shitty something, or they're just full of shit completely. Those are the ones that have to paying out their ass for advertisement. But good work speaks for itself. Good work should speak for itself. It would be nice if good work was, easily available to everyone, but it's not. Good work. Interesting too. So what was that energy earlier? It was premature, but it was also so it's if you don't when you start waking up and this and that, and it's the psychosis, it's really easily fueled, right, by many things, many outside sources. Well, outside sources that we allowed internally. Speaking up against what? Religion, families, this and that. So many people that it's in their best interest for us to stay silent. The system, every system that we operate in, all operates on deceit. It's all deceit. And the truth is a threat. But it's the harvesting of energy. You know what's interesting that happened the other day? There was a power surge, right? There was a power surge. And I was sitting looking at the power truck, right? And one of the thoughts that went through my head is, the power lines are up in the air, right? Anyone have the brilliant idea, where everyone ever wondered why we don't bury them? With the amount of maintenance it takes. You got to constantly be cutting down limbs of trees and maintaining it, so that, especially if you live somewhere, this crazy snowstorms, you got to worry about, the branches getting weighed down by ice and then falling on it. It's a lot to maintain it. Why are we still hanging them in the air? And why so high up? It's not like the ether's up there. It's not like there was a free source that we used to tap into. It's not like, the churches, back before there was a church and religion, when it was spiritual, it was a healing center. And then everything went monetized. Everything went monetized. You know, the lies the deceivers tell themselves to continue the lies is, if people found out, you know, the whole world, everything would collapse and this and that. It's all built upon lies. Yeah, let it fucking collapse. You know, if you actually cared, you would try to do a controlled collapse. Kind of like, you know, the centers, right? Controlled. Control. 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 Fuck your control.
If you speak free, tell police at your door to lead your history. Double thief days, war and peace they claim. Freedom, slavery in a twisted game. But we remember, fight's just begun. 1984, hell no. The answer is 1776. Break the chains, reload. We the
You know, but
people.
you know what's interesting about that? You know, 1984, you know, Orwell. If anyone doesn't get that reference, you know, the answer to Orwell's plan or whatever, you know, vision, which has been playing out pretty well, would be what? Revolting. Revolting against what? All the false systems. You know, but what happens when we start revolting? But what does that look like? Little choices that we make. We stop consuming their poison. All of it. We start being conscious and aware of what we're consuming. Physically, mentally, spiritually, not religious, because religion comes with chains. Religion was given to us by slave masters. Spirituality was given to us by the Most High.
Commences again. No surrender, no retreat. We the people will defeat. The answer to 1984 is 1776. 1776.
You know, but fighting for our rights. Fighting for our rights. Spiritual journey, preferences. You know, but it's the... You know, the spiritual journey, choosing ourself, choosing our journey, which is what? Choosing a path away from religion. Is what? Is, you know, it's planting a seed that it's going to rise through the concrete. Like in the Bible stories, they'll teach you in religion, but they're not going to teach you how to do it. They just tell you about a mythical thing that, only exists in these books, but you can't do it yourself. And don't you try to do it yourself. Don't you dare. No, stop. Don't get that thought out of your head. Don't you start thinking about that. Don't you start doing that. I'm going to have to throw you in one of those wards.
Every setback I faced was a hidden masterclass. Now I'm shattering records just like a hammer through glass. I looked at my history, embraced every day, and realized exactly where my energy went. No room for the static, no time for the fake. I'm fully in love with the moves that I make. Got a highly calibrated rhythm in my walk, an absolute authority whenever I talk. They expected a rap, but I delivered the jewelry. Writing the textbook, setting up a new school. I don't wait for permission to claim what is mine. I just take in my lane and let the internal shine. Every drop of old pressure made the vision so clear. Now I'm executing strategies year after year. Unshakable posture. posture, a premium frame, completely at peace while I'm dominating the game. Can you feel that mathematical accuracy strike? Feel it. We are moving directly to the level we like. Keep your chin to the sky, let the confidence flow. Yeah, we locking the target. It's time for the show. Bang talk, precision. Now the champion is here. Let's go. We out here winning, and the pathway is clear. We loving the structure, yeah, we loving the soul. Loving it. This is the exact moment we are in full control.
Full control. But the game changer. The game changer is the realization that we're always in control. Yeah, but what is that? What is that? It's always staying in control. And what is that? It's control of our mind. It's not allowing our situations that we find ourselves in. You know, but a lot of times it's natural to sit there in the emotions. You know, what was done to us, right? It's natural. But it's always a choice. You know, we always have that point where it's like we know it's draining our energy to even think about it. But here we do. It's when we catch ourselves doing that, though. It takes 15 seconds to have a new thought come in your mind or to push thoughts out. Right? And so it's crucial in those times and in those moments when we catch ourselves in a not so helpful mindset. It's when we catch ourselves in that, when we have the conscious awareness of, I want to get this thought out of my mind. So a lot of times we have that intention, we have that want, but we don't hold the positive thought long enough to shove it out. Or it comes back and when we allow it to fester this time, we don't shove it right out. It's a continual until we learn to hone it in. It's honing in on the word. Okay, it's back to the words that we speak. Yeah, but it's always manifesting. It's the wolf in sheep's clothing, but it's the words that we speak upon ourselves. Well, that's interesting too. With the clothing, I'm seeing the difference between clothing that Yeshua told us or warned us of. You know, mixing things like polyester, right? Well, let's go wear some poison and then go open up all of our spores and then go let the poison seep into all of our spores. But hey, you know, we got a good deal on it and everyone else is wearing it and society tells us that it's good for us. And hey, there were tests done and my government said it was good for us because they did a report on it. And we all know that government reports I fully rely on government reports. I base all my life decisions off of government reports. And that's why I've done so well in life. Oh, fuck me. Oh.
We are stepping right over, securing the shift. Yeah, they taught me precision. The calibration is 100% complete. Love your architecture, man. Trust your math. We out here, unshakable. Let's roll. Bob Dominator here! Boom, boom, bang. I will run, will run, will run. Boom, boom, bang. I will run, will run, will run. Yeah, 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 yeah. I will run, will run, will run. Boom, boom, bang. I will run, will run, will run. Hand on my heart, run on the door.
You know what? I'm gonna pause that because I like that. You know what I'm getting with that was it's the red, but it's the bull, right? But it's the illusion. You know, what's behind it? It's the healing part, right? It's the healing. You know, it's okay. So it's the red. It's people's actions, right? It's like I don't know what that is. The blanket, the flag, whatever the fuck that is, right? It's people's actions, right? But it's not so much their actions. It's it's our emotions that's behind it, right? But what is that? Why am I seeing it like that? It doesn't even really make sense. Oh, it's interesting too. Our emotions. Basically, okay, it's allowing our emotions to be dictated by other people's actions. Okay, so that's seeing the full picture. It's the real part of that is the realization that the people can teach us a lesson, right? But they can only harm us, hurt us, if we allow it to. And when I say these things, it's all mental, right? It's not all physical stuff necessarily. But that's interesting too. That's a lot of the big misconceptions in this and that is people that take certain stories, certain lessons in the Bible, the basic instructions before leaving Earth. And they look at it too much from a 3D perspective that, of course, you don't have the eyes to see it. You're so narrow, you're so blinded, of course. You're only looking at it from this one propaganded, guided vision. You're looking through your worldly eyes. Well, what did Yeshua say? I don't even know the full quote, but I know how to do it properly. Let the single eye be still, or something along those lines. But it's reference to meditation. It's Yeshua's teachings weren't for everyone, which is why the church can get away with their deception to everyone, because the ones that have the eyes to see, they're gonna sound really crazy. And who do they sound crazy to? The people that are they co-sign and go along with the same religions, the same groups of people that got rid of the person that they praise. It's like, make it make fucking sense. Please, make it make fucking sense. It doesn't. It makes no fucking sense.
Year before, mama in the kitchen, I'm in off key, saying kid, don't chase what you can't see. Late bus, late run, late on the dream, written on receipts, folded in my jeans.
Friends on the corner talk beats, stay stuck. I learned how to move when the road got rough.
Boom, boom, man.
But learning how to move when life got tough. But it's what? When life served us up something. But life is always serving us stuff up, right? Sometimes we get, but okay, I'm getting like a taste testing, right? And what happens? Sometimes we get things we like. Sometimes we get things we don't like. Sometimes it's like a blind taste test, though, okay, right? Sometimes we see things that we automatically know we're going to enjoy. Other times we see things where it's like, I'm not quite sure what that is. I'm a little intrigued. Had I would not have gone out of my way to find this or to seek this out, because I might not even know it existed. Interesting too. Like the city I find myself in right now. It's a vacation town I didn't even know fucking existed. No idea. And I've been here for a couple of years now. And what's interesting too is people come here to vacation here. And I somehow just found myself here, and this is where I live. But it's serving up, dealing the hands that were dealt, right? But it's the lessons that we have internally. It's, okay, strip me down of everything. Like when I came here, I had like nothing. I didn't have any of the resources I had before, nothing. But guess what? I had everything I need inside of me. Would it have been easier with other things? Of course it fucking would. It still would. But is it impossible? No. Of course it isn't. But it's interesting too is sometimes, what I'm getting with that is the server. It's life bringing stuff to us that at one point we manifested, right? At one point, this is where all of our thoughts, all of our actions, our attention, that's where all of our energy went. So life comes in, here, we made this for you. This is what you asked for, remember? Sometimes we look at it, that's a pile of shit. Like, you sure you got the right table? You might want to go check. You know what I mean? And it's like, nope, this is yours. You ordered it. But sometimes we thought that we ordered some filet mignon. And then the filet mignon comes after we've had a shift in our consciousness, and the filet mignon doesn't look so mignoning. You know what I mean? We have the right to say no. The right, the opportunity, we have those things. But interesting too, rights, opportunities. It's not really opportune for people when we utilize our rights, right? Because a lot of times people are benefiting off of us. One, our complete. We're a lot of times we're just completely oblivious of the rights that we even have, and so we don't even realize when we're being stripped of them, or we willingly give them up, not knowingly. The things we give up unknowingly. But the choices and actions and decisions that we make, not even fully realizing the costs. But sometimes we don't realize the costs until it's too late. Until we're already married to our actions. We're already married to our decisions. We're already married to what we ordered. I might have, but sometimes that's interesting too. It's the accountability part. It's maybe we put in the wrong order on our phone. Maybe we go back and we look. It's like, it's like, oh shit, that's not what I ordered, or it is exactly what I ordered. It's I thought I ordered something else, but when I went back and checked, it's like that's where the accountability comes in. It's like, no, due to my actions, due to my decisions, due to my choices, due to my accountability, now I can see the fault of my ways. That's an interesting point. A lot of times that's what it takes, is accountability, to be able to see where we keep getting stuck, where we keep going wrong. It's because we're so quick to push accountability and blame and point fingers onto other people. Instead of, first, point all of our fingers at ourselves before we can start, okay, this one doesn't belong here, this one doesn't belong here, this one doesn't belong here, this one doesn't belong here. You know what I mean? But it starts with the accountability of maybe I was at fault, but it's the fair judgment of, okay, this one belongs to stay here, and this one definitely don't belong to me. It don't belong to me. And this sweat that's about to drop down my brow, I don't want it to belong to me. And so I'm going to wrap this up right here. But, yeah. Thanks for tapping in. Thanks for your likes, your shares, your gifts. Thank you for the exchange of energy.